did a paper with some colleagues and with Alberto Cavallo, who's at Harvard, who's one of the founder of price stats. So we did a paper where we looked at how online data forecasts official data in 20 something countries. And not only that, we looked at how it forecasts market variables. Because here's the thing, the market gets ahead of the data. For example, one really simple thing to do is just look at oil. Energy is a huge component of CPI. That's why people talk about core CPI, where they strip out energy. So you can get a sense of where these numbers are going to come in by looking at a few things just back of the envelope. What we find, though, is that this data does a better job at getting ahead of what the official data is going to be and of getting ahead of how the market's going to interpret it. So I want to answer your question because I haven't answered it yet.
It's okay.
I certainly don't want to criticize the Fed or any central bank. That's an incredibly difficult job that they have.
Yeah.
I think, though, and we know that many central banks, because they've said so publicly, do look at this data, including the Fed have talked about it publicly. Their job is harder because of the lags. The real economy reacts to changes in variables like inflation more slowly than markets, because markets are forward-looking. Markets are going to price it in right away. So the bond market, the stock market, they're going to price in these things the moment investor expectations shift. And that makes in advance, even 2 weeks of advance notice, really valuable in markets. I think for central banks, certainly it's valuable to get ahead of it. But for them, if they think about the trade-off between having imperfect data very quickly or much, more complete data a couple weeks later, for them, that trade-off may err more toward we're okay waiting. But we know they look at it. And I'll tell you one other thing. I think where it can come in handy is there was a time toward the end of last year when we were worried that the federal government might have shut down due to budget negotiations. And the Fed president said publicly at that time, the New York Fed president said, look, we won't be flying blind. We'll have other sources to look at because if the government shuts down, the BLS can't publish its inflation numbers, right? So he said, look, in that case, and he named this source as one of the things that they would look at. So I think it's absolutely valuable to central banks. They do look at it. And I think what you're going to see over time is that central banks and statistical offices around the world, and this is already starting, Philip, are going to start looking at things online. And then you're going to see, I don't think in 15 years, I don't think you're going to have inflation numbers coming out every month and being captured in stores the way they are now. And by the way, I don't think you'll see that for retail sales, or I don't think you'll see that for many of these big variables.